The floorboards in our Victorian house creaked like old bones whenever someone walked upstairs. Tonight, those creaks told me Lila was pacing again, phone pressed to her ear, voice carrying through the thin walls like poison through veins. "Oh my God, you should see Drew's face when I mention my body count," she laughed, that sharp sound that used to make me smile, but now felt like nails on a chalkboard. He gets all red and stammers like some virgin teenager. It's honestly pathetic. I sat frozen in my cramped study, contractor blueprints scattered across my desk, pencil suspended mid-calculation. 3 years of marriage, and this is what our bedroom conversations had become to her. Comedy material for her girlfriends. "I swear, Jade, sometimes I think I married my grandfather," Lila continued, her voice dripping with contempt. "He actually asked me to tone it down at dinner last week. Can you believe that? Like if you can't handle a real woman, maybe you should have stuck with your hand." The pencil snapped between my fingers. Andrew Carter, 38 years old, ex-journalist turned contractor, reduced to a punchline in his own home. I'd given up my newspaper job to support her marketing consulting business, thinking we were building something together. Instead, I'd apparently built myself a front-row seat to my own humiliation. "Drew thinks he's so intellectual with his books and his thoughtful conversations," she mocked, and I could picture her making air quotes. Meanwhile, Simon actually knows how to have fun. He doesn't clutch his pearls every time I mention sleeping with someone before him. Simon. That name hit like a punch to the gut. Simon Graham, some tech startup guy she'd mentioned a few times. Always in passing. Always casual. Simon from the co-working space says this, or Simon thinks that. I'd assumed he was just another networking contact in her endless quest to build her brand. Apparently, I'd assumed wrong. "God, I can't wait for tomorrow's brunch," Lila giggled. "I've got this joke planned that's going to destroy him." Poor little Drew won't know what hit him. The call ended, and those creaky floorboards announced her return to our bedroom. I sat in the darkness of my study, staring at the broken pencil in my hands, feeling something cold and sharp settling in my chest. 24 hours later, I discovered exactly what she'd meant. Rosewood Gastropub buzzed with the usual Saturday brunch crowd, young professionals showing off their weekend outfits, older couples sharing mimosas and gossip, college students nursing hangovers with overpriced eggs Benedict. Our table sat right in the middle of it all, perfectly positioned for maximum social visibility. Lila had chosen the spot deliberately, of course. She always did. "So, Drew," she said, cutting into her avocado toast with surgical precision, "tell everyone about your adorable reaction to my body count joke yesterday." Jade Morrison, Lila's best friend and professional Instagram influencer, leaned forward with predatory interest. Her phone was already out, probably recording for her stories. Morgan Wells from Lila's co-working space sat beside her, trying to look disinterested but clearly hungry for drama. "I don't think that's really brunch conversation," I said carefully, taking a sip of my coffee. It tasted bitter, but everything did these days. "Oh, come on," Lila pressed, her voice getting louder. "Don't be such a prude. We're all adults here." The tables around us were starting to pay attention. I could feel eyes turning our way, phones subtly angling in our direction. This was planned, orchestrated, designed for maximum humiliation. "See, girls," Lila announced, her voice carrying across the restaurant. "Drew here gets all uncomfortable when I mention my body count. Like physically uncomfortable. His face turns red, he starts stuttering. The whole 9 yards. Jade cackled. "Oh my God, that's so cute. Like a little Victorian gentleman." "Right?" Lila was warming up now, feeding off the attention. "I told him my number the other night, and I swear he looked like he was going to faint. I mean, what did he expect? That he was my first? That I spent my 20s knitting and waiting for Prince Charming?" Morgan was recording now too, not even trying to hide it. Other diners had their phones out. I was becoming a viral moment in real time. "The best part," Lila continued, "is how he tries to change the subject. Like, We'll be having a perfectly normal conversation about dating experiences, and he'll suddenly need to talk about the weather or some boring contractor stuff. Maybe, I said quietly. I just think some things should stay private between us. Wrong answer. Private? Lila's voice hit a pitch that made nearby glasses ring. What is this, the 1950s? Are you going to ask me to wear an apron and call you sir next? The laughter from our table was echoing now, bouncing off other conversations, spreading like wildfire through the restaurant's social media ecosystem. I could see people typing furiously, sharing the show in real time. Look, Lila said, her voice dripping with theatrical patience. If you can't take jokes about my body count, maybe you should just pay for your breakfast and leave. Let the adults have their conversation. The restaurant fell silent. Even the kitchen seemed to pause. Every eye in the place was on me, waiting to see how the joke would end. I reached for my wallet. You know what, Lila? You're absolutely right. I pulled out a $20 bill and placed it on the table, exactly enough to cover my coffee and eggs, plus tip. That should handle my portion, I said, standing up. You ladies enjoy your adult conversation. Lila's face went white. This wasn't in her script. Drew, wait, I was just what? Just humiliating your husband for social media points? Just sharing our private conversations with strangers? Just making sure everyone knows what a pathetic, old-fashioned loser you married? The silence was deafening. Phones were definitely recording now. You wanted me to pay and leave, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly quiet restaurant. So I'm paying for what I ordered, and I'm leaving. Seems fair to me. I walked out of Rosewood Gastropub with every eye in the place following me, leaving my wife and her friends staring at a $20 bill and a table full of uneaten food they couldn't afford. The walk home gave me time to think. 3 blocks of tree-lined streets, past the campus bookstore where we'd had our first date, past the coffee shop where she'd said yes to my proposal, past all the landmarks of a relationship that had apparently been dying while I wasn't paying. Attention. Mrs. Bellamy was watering her prize-winning roses when I reached our street. At 73, she knew everything that happened in a 6-block radius and wasn't shy about sharing her observations. Home early from brunch, dear? She called out, her voice sweet as arsenic. Something like that? Funny thing, she continued, not looking up from her flowers. I've been seeing the same car parked outside your house all week. Silver BMW, expensive looking. Thought maybe you were having work done on the house. I stopped walking. What time of day? Oh, mornings mostly. Sometimes afternoons when you're at job sites. Never evenings when you're home, though. Considerate visitors, I suppose. Simon Graham drove a silver BMW. I'd seen it at the co-working space when I'd picked Lila up for lunch last month. Thanks for keeping an eye out, Mrs. Bellamy. Of course, dear. We neighbors have to look out for each other. Inside our house, I went straight to the closet where Lila kept her winter coats. She was meticulous about emptying pockets, but sometimes things slipped through the cracks. In the pocket of her black wool pea coat, I found a hotel keycard. The Grandview Inn, room 237. I sat on our bed, turning the plastic rectangle over in my hands, feeling the last pieces of my marriage crumble into dust. My phone buzzed. A text from Lila. Drew, come back. We need to talk. I typed back, sure, we definitely need to talk. But not the way she was expecting. Eddie Kowalski had been my friend since high school, back when we both thought we'd conquer the world through sheer determination and bad decision-making. Now he ran a small private investigation business, mostly insurance fraud and cheating spouse cases. The irony wasn't lost on me as I sat in his cluttered office Monday morning, explaining my situation. So let me get this straight, Eddie said, leaning back in his chair that squeaked like a dying mouse. Your wife humiliated you in public. You found evidence she's cheating, and now you want to what exactly? Catch them in the act? I want to know everything, I said. How long it's been going on, who else knows what they're planning. I want the full picture before I make any moves. Eddie studied me with the sharp eyes that had made him a good cop before he went private. Drew, you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes ignorance really is bliss. She made me a public joke, Eddie. It's already viral on social media. Half the town has seen me get humiliated by my own wife. Ignorance isn't an option anymore. He nodded slowly. All right. But we do this smart and legal. No breaking and entering, no planted evidence, no vigilante bullshit. Just good old-fashioned detective work. Agreed. Give me a week. I'll get you everything you need to know. That afternoon, I threw myself into work at the Morrison renovation project, a 1920s craftsman that reminded me why I loved construction. There was something honest about building things, fixing things, making broken structures whole again. Unlike marriages, apparently. My crew noticed my mood immediately. Tommy Reeves, my foreman, kept shooting me concerned looks while we framed out the new kitchen. Boss, you okay? You've been swinging that hammer like it owes you money. Just working through some personal stuff, Tommy. Woman trouble? I paused mid-swing. That obvious? Brother, I've been married 3 times. I know the signs. You want to talk about it? Not yet, but thanks. The physical work helped clear my head, gave me space to think without Lila's voice echoing in my ears. By the time I got home, I had a plan forming. Lila was in the kitchen, making what looked like an apology dinner. Salmon, roasted vegetables, a bottle of wine that cost more than my daily food budget. She'd changed into the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary, the one she said made her feel beautiful. Hey, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. How was work? Fine. Productive. Good. That's good. She was nervous, fidgeting with her wedding ring. Listen, about Saturday. You mean about you humiliating me in front of half the town? She flinched. I didn't mean for it to go that far. It was supposed to be just a little teasing between friends. Teasing. I sat down at our kitchen table, the same one we'd bought together when we first moved in. Is that what you call sharing intimate details of our marriage with strangers? They're not strangers, Drew. They're my friends. Your friends who were recording the whole thing for social media? Lila's face flushed. That's just how people share experiences now. It doesn't mean anything. It meant something to me. We stared at each other across the table. 3 years of marriage and a lifetime of misunderstanding stretching between us. I'm sorry, she said finally. I really am. I got carried away, and I hurt you. That wasn't fair. For a moment, I almost believed her, almost forgot about the hotel keycard, about Mrs. Bellamy's observations, about the name Simon that kept popping up in her conversations. Then, my phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged me in a video titled, Husband Gets Destroyed by Wife's Body Count Joke. It already had 3,000 views. Yeah, I said, declining the call. I can see how sorry you are. Wednesday evening, I got a call from Eddie. Meet me at Murphy's Bar in an hour. And Drew, you might want to have a few drinks first. Murphy's was the kind of dive that attracted people who wanted to disappear for a while. Dim lighting, cash-only policy, bartender who minded his own business. Eddie was already in a corner booth when I arrived, a manila folder on the table between us. How bad is it? I asked, sliding into the booth. On a scale of 1 to 10? About a 15-inch. He opened the folder. The first photo showed Lila and Simon Graham entering the Grandview Inn together. The timestamp read, Tuesday, 2:47 p.m. They've been meeting there twice a week for the past 2 months, Eddie said. Always the same room, always when you're at job sites. She pays cash. He brings lunch from that fancy place downtown. The next photo showed them at a coffee shop, heads close together, laughing at something on Simon's phone. But here's where it gets interesting, Eddie continued. I did some digging into Graham's background. Guy's not exactly the successful entrepreneur he pretends to be. His startup failed 6 months ago, he's behind on rent for his condo, and he's got some serious debt problems. So what's he want with Lila? That's the million-dollar question. Your wife's business is doing well, right? Good client base? Steady income? Better than well. She just landed 3 major contracts this quarter. Eddie nodded grimly. Drew, I think you need to look at your financial accounts. Tonight. The drive home felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. Lila was already asleep when I crept into my study and fired up the laptop. Our joint checking account showed normal activity, mortgage, utilities, groceries. But when I checked the business account that Lila managed, $50,000 gone. Transferred out in increments over the past month to something called SG Consulting Services. I sat staring at the screen until my eyes burned, adding up the betrayal. It wasn't just an affair, it was theft. It was the systematic dismantling of everything we'd built together. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your wife's friends are planning something for Friday night. Thought you should know. A friend. I stared at the message, wondering who could have sent it. Then I remembered Morgan's face during the brunch disaster. She'd looked almost guilty while filming. Maybe Lila's inner circle wasn't as tight as she thought. Friday night couldn't come fast enough. Thursday morning brought an unexpected gift. I was grabbing coffee at the campus bookstore when I overheard Jade Morrison talking to some guy with an expensive camera. "It's going to be epic content," she was saying. "We're staging an intervention for her husband tomorrow night. He's been, emotionally abusive since the brunch thing, and she needs her friends to show him what real support looks like." Emotionally abusive. The words hit me like a physical blow. I ducked behind a bookshelf, pulling out my phone to record. "The plan is to surprise him at their house around 8, Jade continued. "Show up with wine and snacks. Make it clear that Lila has people who actually care about her. If he gets aggressive, we'll have it all on camera." The guy with the camera nodded eagerly. This could go viral if we play it right. Toxic masculinity confronted by female solidarity. The algorithm loves that stuff. Exactly. And if he does something really stupid, we might have grounds for a restraining order. Lila could use that in the divorce proceedings. So that's where this was heading. I slipped out of the bookstore and called Eddie immediately. "They're planning to ambush me tomorrow night," I told him. "Make me look like an abuser on camera, probably to help Lila in divorce court." "Shit. Drew, you need to be very careful here. If they're planning to provoke you into doing something stupid, I'm not going to do anything stupid, but I am going to be ready for them." "What do you have in mind?" "Turn the tables. They want to stage a performance. Let's give them one they'll never forget." That afternoon, I made some calls. Tommy and his brother Mike agreed to help with what I described as a little home security project. Mrs. Bellamy was more than happy to let me install a camera in her upstairs window that faced our front yard. She'd been wanting to upgrade her neighborhood watch game anyway. By Friday evening, I had 4 hidden cameras covering different angles of our living room, 2 more watching the front and back approaches to the house, and a live feed going to Eddie's office where he'd be recording everything for legal purposes. "You sure about this, boss?" Tommy asked as we finished the setup. "These ladies sound like they mean business." "So do I, Tommy. So do I." Lila came home from work at 6:30, all nervous energy and fake smiles. "Hey, honey," she said, kissing my cheek like we were still a normal couple. "I'm going out with the girls tonight. Just drinks and catching up, you know." "Sounds fun. Where are you headed?" "Oh, just that new wine bar downtown. Nothing fancy." She was lying, of course, but I played along. "Well, have a good time. I'll probably just stay in, work on some blueprints." "Perfect." She was already heading upstairs to change. "Don't wait up for me. We might make it a late night." At 7:45, I was sitting in my study with all the camera feeds pulled up on my laptop when I saw the first car pull up outside. Jade's white Mercedes, followed by Morgan's Honda, followed by 2 other cars I didn't recognize. My phone rang. Lila. "Hey, babe," she said, and I could hear multiple voices in the background. "Change of plans. The girls want to come back to the house for wine. We'll be there in 10 minutes, okay?" "Sure," I said. "I'll make myself scarce." You don't have to leave. We just want to have some girl talk, you know? Girl talk. Right. I'll be in my study if you need anything. At exactly 8 p.m., my front door opened and Lila walked in, followed by 6 women, 3 of whom had professional-grade cameras. This wasn't an intervention. This was a production. "Drew?" Lila called out, her voice artificially sweet. "Can you come out here for a minute? The girls want to talk to you about something." I took a deep breath, checked that my own phone was recording, and walked into the living room. The scene was set like a courtroom. Lila sat in the center of our couch, flanked by Jade and Morgan. The other women formed a semicircle around the room, cameras rolling, phones out. I recognized the setup from every viral confrontation video I'd ever seen. "Hi, Drew," Jade said with a smile that could cut glass. "We wanted to have a little chat with you about how you've been treating Lila lately." "Treating her?" "The emotional manipulation," Morgan chimed in. "The way you humiliated her at brunch. The silent treatment you've been giving her all week. It's textbook abuse." I almost laughed. Almost. "Abuse?" "I paid for my breakfast and left when she told me to. How is that abuse?" "You abandoned her," said one of the women I didn't recognize, camera trained on my face. "Left her to pay for a meal she couldn't afford in front of all her friends. That's financial abuse. She told me to pay and leave. I paid for what I ordered and left. Seems like I was just following instructions." "Don't be obtuse," Jade snapped. "You knew what she meant." "Actually, I didn't. When someone tells me to pay and leave, I assume they mean pay and leave. Silly me for taking people at their word." Lila was starting to look uncomfortable. This wasn't going according to script. "Drew," she said softly, "we're just trying to have a conversation here. About our relationship. About how we can communicate better." "Our relationship?" I looked around the room at all the cameras, all the expectant faces waiting for me to explode. "Is that what we're calling this? A relationship conversation?" I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app. "Since we're having such an honest conversation about our relationship, maybe you can help me understand something, Lila. Can you explain why $50,000 disappeared from our business account last month?" The room went dead silent. "I don't know what you're talking about," Lila said, but her face had gone white. "SG Consulting Services. Ring any bells?" "Because it sure rings bells for me, especially since I know someone named Simon Graham who's been visiting our house while I'm at work." Jade's camera wavered. Morgan actually took a step back. "You've been spying on me!" Lila's voice was shrill now, desperate. "I've been paying attention." Finally. Something I should have been doing months ago. I looked directly into Jade's camera. "Ladies, you came here tonight to film an intervention about my abusive behavior, but I'm curious. What do you call it when someone steals $50,000 from their spouse? What do you call it when someone has an affair and then tries to gaslight their partner into thinking they're the problem?" "You're twisting everything," Lila said, but her voice was shaking. "Am I?" "Because I've got hotel receipts, bank records, and some very interesting photos that suggest otherwise." The women were looking at each other now, cameras lowering, the energy in the room shifting like a tide turning. "I think," I said calmly, "that if anyone needs an intervention here, it's not me." That's when Jade made her mistake. "You bastard!" she snarled, stepping toward me with her phone raised like a weapon. "You think you can just—" She swung at me. Actually swung her phone at my head like she was trying to brain me with it. I caught her wrist easily. Construction work keeps you strong, and held it just long enough to stop the blow. "Don't," I said quietly. But the cameras caught it all. Jade attacking, me defending myself, her screaming like I was murdering her when all I'd done was prevent her from cracking my skull open. "He assaulted me!" she shrieked. "Did you see that? He grabbed me. He assaulted me." The other women were backing toward the door now, suddenly realizing this wasn't the viral video they'd signed up for. Actually, I said, what you just saw was assault. Her attacking me, and battery, her trying to hit me with her phone. What I did was self-defense. And it's all on camera. I gestured toward the corners of the room where my hidden cameras were recording everything. Multiple angles, high definition, audio and video. Should make for interesting viewing if this ends up in court. Lila was crying now. Real tears, not the performative kind she'd been planning. Drew, please, we can work this out. No, I said, we can't. Because this was never about working anything out, this was about setting me up, wasn't it? Get me angry on camera, make me look like an abuser, use it in divorce proceedings to take everything I've worked for. The silence stretched like a held breath. Get out, I said finally. All of you. Get out of my house. They left in a hurry, cameras forgotten, intervention abandoned, leaving only Lila and me standing in the wreckage of our marriage. How long? I asked when the door closed behind them. Drew, how long have you been planning this? The affair, the money, the divorce? She collapsed onto the couch, all the fight going out of her. 6 months, she whispered, since Simon and I started talking about his business ideas. He needed capital, and I thought, you thought you'd steal it from your husband. It wasn't supposed to be stealing. We were going to pay it back, make you a partner in the new venture. With my own money. She nodded miserably. I sat down across from her, suddenly feeling very tired. You know what the funny thing is, Lila? If you'd just talked to me, if you'd just been honest about what you wanted, we might have worked something out. I loved you. I would have done anything for you. I know, she sobbed. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But instead, you chose to humiliate me, steal from me, and try to destroy me. And for what? For some guy who's using you for money he'll never pay back. I stood up, decision made. I want you out of the house by Sunday. Take whatever's yours, leave the rest. We'll let the lawyers sort out the details. Drew, please, we're done, Lila. We've been done for months. I just didn't realize it until now. I walked toward my study, then paused at the doorway. Oh, and Lila? You might want to check your social media. I have a feeling tonight's intervention is about to go viral. Just not the way you planned. Saturday morning brought the kind of autumn sunshine that makes everything look deceptively beautiful. I was sitting on my front porch with coffee and the newspaper, an old habit from my journalism days, when Mrs. Bellamy appeared at her garden gate. Quite the excitement last night, dear, she said, pruning shears in hand. I counted 6 cars, all those women with cameras. Looked like a news crew. Something like that. I hope everything's all right. You know, if you ever need a witness to anything that might have happened, I have excellent eyesight for my age. God bless nosy neighbors. I might take you up on that, Mrs. Bellamy. My phone had been buzzing all morning with notifications. Eddie's security footage had somehow found its way onto social media, completely legally, since it was my house and my cameras, and the internet was having a field day with intervention gone wrong, wife's friends attack husband they accused of abuse. The comments were brutal. So they came to confront him about being abusive and then literally tried to assault him. This is what happens when you believe everything you see on social media. Plot twist, the real abuser was the friends we made along the way. That man showed incredible restraint. I would have pressed charges. Press charges. That wasn't a bad idea. Eddie called around noon. Drew, you need to see this. Jade Morrison just posted a 40-minute video trying to explain what happened last night. It's something. I pulled up Jade's Instagram live stream. She was in her perfectly curated apartment, ring light positioned for maximum sympathy, talking to an audience of 12,000 viewers. What you didn't see in those viral clips was the months of psychological torture Drew put Lila through, she was saying, tears streaming down her face. The gaslighting, the financial control, the way he isolated her from her friends. The comments were split between supporters and skeptics. Jade is so brave for speaking out. But didn't your friend literally try to hit him with her phone? Believe women. I believe evidence, and the evidence shows you attacking him. This is just another example of how abusers manipulate situations. Ma'am, your friend stole $50,000 from her husband and you're calling him the abuser? I watched for a few more minutes as Jade dug herself deeper into a hole of contradictions and deflections. The tide of public opinion was turning, and not in her favor. Then my doorbell rang. Simon Graham stood on my porch, looking like a man who'd aged 5 years overnight. His silver BMW was parked at the curb, the same car Mrs. Bellamy had been seeing all week. "We need to talk," he said. "Do we? Look, I know how this looks. It looks like you seduced my wife, convinced her to steal $50,000 from our joint account, and helped plan an elaborate setup to make me look like an abuser so she could divorce me and keep the money. How does it look to you?" Simon's face crumpled. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? Can I come in? Please? I'll tell you everything." Against my better judgment, I led him into my living room. The same room where his girlfriend and her friends had tried to destroy me less than 24 hours ago. "I never meant for anyone to get hurt," Simon began, pacing like a caged animal. "My startup failed, I was drowning in debt, and Lila mentioned how successful her business was. So you decided to seduce her for money. It wasn't like that. I mean, it started like that, but I actually developed feelings for her. Real feelings. Touching. What about the 50,000? Simon stopped pacing. That was her idea. She said you'd been controlling the finances, that she deserved to invest in something for herself. She made it sound like you were this oppressive husband who kept her trapped. And you believed her? I wanted to believe her. Look, Drew, I'm not proud of this, but I was desperate. My investors were threatening to sue, my landlord was about to evict me, and here was this beautiful, successful woman offering to help. In exchange for what? She wanted out of the marriage. Said you'd become cold and distant, that you made her feel stupid and small. The plan was to use the money to get my business back on track, then she'd leave you, and we'd be together. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. And the intervention setup? That was all Jade's idea. She said, if they could get you on camera losing your temper, it would help Lila in the divorce. I told them it was a bad idea, but they were convinced you'd snap. So you went along with it. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I was supposed to stay away until it was over. But when I saw the live stream starting to go viral, when I realized how badly it was going, you decided to come clean. Simon nodded miserably. Drew, I'll give the money back, all of it. I'll testify that it was my idea, that I manipulated Lila into taking it. Just please don't press charges. I can't go to prison. I studied his face, looking for signs of deception. All I saw was a scared, weak man who'd made a series of terrible decisions and was finally facing the consequences. Where's Lila now? Hotel downtown. She's been calling me all morning, but I haven't answered. I think she's starting to realize how bad this looks. It looks bad because it is bad, Simon. You helped steal $50,000 from me. You helped plan an elaborate scheme to frame me as an abuser. You participated in the destruction of my marriage. I know, and I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't rebuild trust. Sorry doesn't undo the humiliation. Sorry doesn't give me back the last 6 months of my life. Simon was crying now, actual tears running down his face. What do you want me to do? I thought about it. What did I want? I wanted my marriage back, but that was impossible. I wanted the last 6 months back, but time doesn't work that way. I wanted to never have heard my wife laughing about my inadequacies on the phone, but that memory was burned into my brain forever. What I wanted was justice. And maybe, Just maybe, I was about to get it. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "You're going to transfer every penny back into our joint account within 24 hours. You're going to write a detailed confession about the whole scheme, the affair, the money, the intervention setup, all of it. And you're going to post a public apology on social media, taking full responsibility for your part in this mess." "Okay, yes, absolutely." "I'm not finished. You're also going to stay away from my wife. No calls, no texts, no contact of any kind. If I find out you've spoken to her, the deal is off, and I press charges for theft, conspiracy, and anything else my lawyer can think of." Simon nodded frantically. "Done." "Anything else?" "Yeah. Get off my property and don't come back." He practically ran to his car. That evening, I was grilling a steak on my back deck when Lila showed up. She looked terrible, hair unwashed, makeup smeared, wearing the same clothes from the night before. "Simon told me what he said to you," she began without preamble. "He's lying, Drew. He's trying to save himself by throwing me under the bus." "Is he?" "Yes." "The money was his idea. He said he needed it for the business, that he'd pay it back with interest. I never meant to steal from you. But you did steal from me. I borrowed from us, from our joint resources. I was going to tell you about it once the investment paid off." I flipped the steak, watching the flames dance around the edges. "What about the affair?" Lila's face crumpled. "That just happened. We were working together, spending time together, and things got complicated. But it wasn't some elaborate seduction. We have real feelings for each other. And the intervention? I swear to God, Drew, I didn't know Jade was planning that. I thought we were just going to talk, maybe have some wine and work things out. When I saw all those cameras, when I realized what she was doing, you went along with it. I was scared. You'd been so cold all week, and then you confronted me about the bank account, and I thought maybe you'd found out about Simon. I had found out about Simon." She stared at me. "How long have you known? Does it matter? The question is, what happens now?" Lila sat down on my deck steps, looking small and defeated. "I don't know. Simon won't return my calls. Jade's blaming me for the whole mess. Half my clients have canceled their contracts because of the viral videos. My business is basically destroyed." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you? Really?" I considered the question honestly. "Yeah, actually I am. I never wanted to see you fail, Lila. I wanted to see us succeed. Together. Is there any chance, any possibility at all, that we could try to work this out?" I looked at my wife of 3 years, sitting on the steps of the house we'd bought together, asking for forgiveness for betrayals I was still discovering. A part of me, a big part, wanted to say yes. Wanted to believe that love could overcome anything, that marriage vows meant something, that the woman I'd fallen in love with was still in there somewhere. But I thought about the phone call I'd overheard, about her laughing at my expense. I thought about the hotel keycard, about the missing money, about the cameras in my living room, and the intervention that was designed to destroy me. "No," I said finally. "I don't think there is." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know I don't deserve it, but could you maybe ask your lawyer to go easy on me? I'll sign whatever papers you want, give you whatever you want in the divorce. I just don't want this to destroy my whole life." "Your whole life was already destroyed, Lila. You just didn't realize it yet." She left without another word. 3 weeks later, I was finishing up the Morrison renovation when Tommy brought me a cup of coffee and the local newspaper. "Boss, you might want to see the front page." The headline read, "Local influencer charged with assault conspiracy." Below it was a photo of Jade Morrison in handcuffs, being led out of the courthouse. The article detailed how the viral intervention video had prompted a deeper investigation into what the DA's office was calling a conspiracy to commit fraud and defamation. Apparently, when the authorities started digging, they found evidence that Jade and her followers had done this before, targeted men in messy divorces, created viral content designed to destroy their reputations, then helped their female friends claim larger settlements. It was a whole business model, and I'd almost become their latest victim. Says here she's looking at 2 years in prison, Tommy said, reading over my shoulder. Her Instagram account got permanently banned, too. What about Lila? Wife's cooperating with authorities. Looks like she might get probation and community service. The boyfriend's paying restitution and testifying against the influencer lady. I folded the newspaper and got back to work. Justice, it turned out, was more satisfying than revenge. That afternoon, Eddie called with an update on the civil case. Simon transferred the full $50,000 back, plus another $10,000 for damages, he reported. Lila signed the divorce papers without contesting anything. Oh, and that video of the intervention? It's been viewed over 2 million times. You're internet famous, my friend. Lucky me. There's more. I've been getting calls from other men who think their wives might be involved in similar schemes. Apparently, this whole film the toxic husband thing is more common than we thought. You might have stumbled onto something big here. I just wanted my life back, Eddie. Well, you got that, plus about 15 minutes of fame and enough material for a book deal if you're interested. A book deal. My old journalist instincts stirred at the thought. That evening, I was sitting on my front porch again when Mrs. Bellamy appeared with a plate of homemade cookies. Thought you might like these, she said. Chocolate chip, your favorite. How did you know chocolate chip was my favorite? Dear, I've been watching you eat lunch on this porch for 3 years. I noticed things. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set behind the oak trees that lined our street. You know, Mrs. Bellamy said eventually, I never liked that wife of yours. No? Too performative. Always putting on a show, always worried about what other people thought. Marriage shouldn't be a performance, dear. It should be a partnership. Wise words. 73 years of life experience. You learn a few things. She stood to leave, then paused at my gate. For what it's worth, I think you handled the whole mess with remarkable grace. A lesser man would have done something he'd regret. I came close a few times. But you didn't. That's what matters. After she left, I pulled out my laptop and started writing. Not blueprints or construction estimates, but words. The story of what had happened. From that first overheard phone call to the viral intervention to the final courtroom drama. Maybe Eddie was right about the book deal. Maybe other people needed to hear this story, needed to know that sometimes the victim isn't who you think it is. Or maybe I just needed to write it all down, get it out of my system, turn the experience into something useful instead of just painful. Either way, I had time now. Time to write, time to think, time to figure out what came next. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about your ex-wife's friends. Just wanted to say you handled everything with class. Hope you find happiness. Morgan from the co-working space, the one who'd looked guilty during the brunch disaster, who'd probably sent me that anonymous warning about the intervention. I typed back, "Thank you. That means more than you know." A few minutes later, another text. "If you ever want to grab coffee and talk to someone who understands crazy friend drama, let me know. I've got some stories that would make your situation look tame." I stared at the message for a long time, thinking about second chances and new beginnings and the possibility that not everyone in Lila's orbit had been corrupted by her toxicity. "I'd like that," I typed back. "How's Tuesday afternoon?" "Perfect. I know a place that serves great coffee and minds its own business." I smiled, closed my laptop, and went inside to start planning the rest of my life. 6 months later, the book was finished. The Intervention, a true story of marriage, betrayal, and social media justice, hit the bestseller list in its 3rd week. The movie rights sold for more money than I'd made in 5 years of construction work. More importantly, Morgan and I were dating. Really dating, not performing for social media or playing games or keeping score. She'd left the co-working space after witnessing what she called the toxic mean girl culture and started her own consulting business. We understood each other, two people who'd been burned by other people's drama and were determined to build something real. Lila moved to California after her probation ended, started over with a new name and a new business. I heard through the grapevine that she was engaged to some tech guy she met at a networking event. I hoped she'd learned something from our disaster, but I wasn't holding my breath. Simon Graham disappeared entirely. Last anyone heard, he was working at a Best Buy in Phoenix, living in a studio apartment, still paying off the debts that had started the whole mess. Jade Morrison served 18 months in minimum security prison and got out to find her entire influencer career destroyed. Turns out, when you're famous for manipulating people and creating fake drama, brands don't want to work with you anymore. She was working at a coffee shop in Portland, according to Eddie, who kept tabs on all the players for professional reasons. As for me, I went back to construction work because I loved it. But now I also had a writing career and a woman who thought my jokes were funny instead of embarrassing. Life was good. Different than I'd planned, but good. The house felt different too. Lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted from the walls themselves. I'd renovated the bedroom, painted over the memories, turned Lila's walk-in closet into a home office where I wrote in the evenings. Mrs. Bellamy still brought me cookies and neighborhood gossip. Tommy and the crew still gave me grief about being Hollywood famous. Eddie still called with updates on cases that reminded him of mine. But the best part was the quiet. No more walking on eggshells. No more wondering what private moment would become public entertainment. No more feeling like a stranger in my own home. Just peace, and the knowledge that sometimes when someone tells you to pay and leave, the best thing you can do is exactly that. On the anniversary of the intervention disaster, I was sitting on my front porch with Morgan, reading reviews of my book on her phone, when she looked up at me with a grin. "Listen to this one," she said. "This book should be required reading for anyone getting married. 5 stars for showing that the real victim isn't always who you think it is." Not bad. Or this one. Drew Carter's story proves that the best revenge is living well and letting the truth speak for itself. A masterclass in grace under pressure. I thought about that phrase, grace under pressure. It sounded better than what I'd felt at the time, which was mostly confusion and anger and a desperate desire to make the people who'd hurt me understand what they'd done. But maybe that's what grace under pressure actually was, not some noble, enlightened response to betrayal, but simply the decision to keep moving forward, to tell the truth, and to let the consequences fall where they may. "One more," Morgan said, scrolling through the reviews. "If you can't take jokes about my body count, pay and leave." He did. Then he paid them all back in the best possible way, by telling the truth. Brilliant. I leaned back in my chair, watching the sun set behind the same oak trees I'd watched for years, and smiled. Sometimes, the best revenge really is just living well. And sometimes, when someone tells you to pay and leave, the smartest thing you can do is pay exactly what you owe. Leave with your dignity intact, and let them figure out how to cover the rest of the bill themselves. They'd wanted me to be the punchline of their joke. Instead, I became the author of my own story. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.